American Top 40.
Here's the highest debuting song of the week. It comes in at number 20 by a three-man group called America. Highest debuting record of the week by three guys who make their home in England. America is the name of the group. The song, A Horse with No Name, at number 20.
American Top 40.
And now the hottest song in the charts. It's by three Americans who live in England, but who aren't letting the English forget where they came from. There's a reminder every time their name comes up. They live just outside of London in the countryside, in a dilapidated old cottage. It's their official residence. And England is where they met, formed, and emerged as a rock group. But all three are still American citizens. And now, with their first hit on Billboard's Hot 100, they've got the hottest song in the survey. Last week, it premiered in the top 40 at number 20. This week, it leaps to number 7. Here are the three Americans who live in England and call themselves America.
Casey's Coast to Coast.
The way this next record shot up the chart in the last 4 weeks, there was nothing that could have kept it out of the number 1 spot. It's by three young Americans who live in England. Moving into the number 1 position this week, A Horse with No Name. America, A Horse with No Name. This week, number 1.
American Top 40.
Here are fellas who have had three top 40 chart records. I Need You went to number 9, Horse with No Name went to number 1, and this one is at number 13, moving 6 notches this week. It's America with Ventura Highway. The 13th best-selling song in the USA this week by America, Ventura Highway.
Casey's Coast to Coast.
Here's the trio who call themselves America. They were formed in London back in 1970, and they've really been around. Dan Peake, Dewey Bunnell, and Gary Buckley were born into Air Force families and spent their formative years moving from one home to another. Their current hit is at number 16 in the countdown, a big mover titled Sister Golden Hair. A big mover for America from number 28 to number 16. That's Sister Golden Hair.
American Top 40.
Well, this next song is by a recording act that's been blasting the charts for 3 years now. They've run up a string of 9 hits, which include 6 top 10s and a number 1. Now that's some pretty heavy hitting. But these are 3 very frustrated guys. They told writer Cameron Crowe that as a group, their public image is fuzzy, and as individuals, they're practically anonymous. I think they're exaggerating a little bit. The artists who hit with the giant smash, A Horse with No Name, are hardly the group with no name. And their current hit this week becomes their 6th top 10. Moving up to number 5, here are Jerry Beckley, Dan Peake, and Dewey Bunnell, America. That moved from number 11 last week all the way up to number 5 this week. It's got a shot at number 1. That's America with Sister Golden Hair.
American Top 40.
Well, now it's time for the first rock act ever chosen by the American government to represent the United States in Russia. But you know, the group never got to sing in the Soviet Union because the Russians said, "Niet." Since '58, the U.S. and Russia have been trading top artists and personal appearances, part of a cultural exchange program. The Russians have sent us the Bolshoi Ballet, the Leningrad Philharmonic, and the Moisheyev Dancers. And we've sent them the New York Philharmonic, Duke Ellington, and Louis Armstrong. But in the 18 years since the program started, we've never sent a rock act to Russia. Last fall, a top American group auditioned for the U.S. State Department, hoping to win a spot in this year's exchange. And after convincing the Washington officials they'd be excellent musical ambassadors for America, their name was submitted to the Russians. Now, when we spoke with a member of the State Department, he told us that once the American government submits a nomination, it's almost never rejected. So it was a big surprise when the official Russian cultural delegation answered the group's nomination with a loud "Niet." After watching the group perform in L.A., they said their music, and I'm quoting, just wouldn't be interesting to the Soviet people. End of quote. End of Russian explanation. Well, pop fans in this country have found the group's music interesting enough to put a dozen of their songs in the charts during the past 4 years. But for some reason, I guess the Russian government still isn't ready for the music of America. Today's the day. America on American Top 40 at number 23 as the countdown rolls on.
The hits from coast to coast.
Now, the story of the American group that was born in a foreign country. A three-man group that started out in England. They were all students at a high school for the children of American personnel working at an Air Force base near London. And these three teenagers, Jerry Beckley, Dewey Bunnell, and Dan Peake, discovered that they had a lot more in common than fathers in the military. They all loved music. The boys played in a lot of different bands together, including a group called Days. Days broke up, though, when Dan Peake graduated from school. But a year later, Dan got back together with Jerry and Dewey, and they formed another group, a group with no name. Then one day in a British cafeteria, they saw a model of a jukebox called an Americana. That was all the inspiration they needed. The three Americans became America. In 1971, America signed with Warner Brothers Records in England, and in 1972, their first album, titled America, was released in the USA. That LP featured their number one smash, A Horse with No Name. And the group went on to hit the top 40 9 more times with songs like Tin Man, Lonely People, and another number one, Sister Golden Hair. In 1977, Dan Peake became a born-again Christian and left the group to record and perform gospel music. But Jerry Beckley and Dewey Bunnell are still going strong as a duo, still called America. They're with Capitol Records now, and their current hit is at number 23 this week. Here's You Can Do Magic, America. Last week's highest debuting record, where it came in at number 27, moves up to number 23 this week. America and You Can Do Magic. 22 big ones to number one, and we're counting them down.
Casey's Coast to Coast.